Hi, it's Chris here at the Haver Berry Farm, and today I figured I'd talk a little bit about deer, deer fencing, utility vehicles that we use on the farm that we find very useful, and hopefully this will be of use to some people. This is our third orchard, and this was cut over forest land on this bit here, and I've had some challenges trying to establish this orchard, mainly due to the amount of rainfall we've had in the spring and the falls. Summertime, I tend to be too busy to try and work on orchards as far as planting goes, and trying to keep the costs down. I'm trying to do almost all of the work myself, and it's getting there. So we planted these Polish varieties about a year and a half ago, and these ones we grew larger in our nursery, and then we brought them out, so they look a little scraggly. But we've had some trouble with deer, and they were coming out and they would eat all the new growth. And these guys actually had a lot of new growth on them the first year they were planted, but the deer decimated them. And they're doing okay, they're surviving, but we're gonna have to prune them heavily. We'll probably prune them right back to the crown and let them come up so that they're straight, not all blown over, and get them to grow decently again. And you can do that. These plants will take it, but wait till they go dormant. So we won't prune these back all the way until probably November or December, maybe even later than that, depending on the weather. But what we found with the deer is that it seems it's the young ones that like to eat the new growth. They don't normally eat the old growth, but I've had heard, that's on our farm anyway, I have heard of other people saying that they've had some deer chew them right down to the ground, and the plants came back the following year. But here it always seems to be the fawns that like our Haskap plants, and the adults don't tend to touch them. So our biggest challenge is to keep those fawns out of here, and of course they follow the adults. To do this, we use a polypropylene mesh type fencing, and this is the reason I've gone with this is it's not going to break my pocketbook, because if you get into any of these more expensive fencing systems, it's very expensive per square foot. This stuff will last around 10 to 15 years. Some of them are heavier grade, they can last even longer. They're UV treated. It's just a plastic mesh. The deer can actually break through it if they run into it full speed and get caught in it and panic. They will actually rip a hole through the fence and get away. So to what we're really trying to do is just redirect them. So in this orchard, it's typically 4 or 5 deer. They're does and they're young. So if they can see this fence, which they can't at night, so we put a white tie wrap every so often on the middle wire, then they'll just avoid it and walk around it. We found it works. It's no problems. They don't tend to jump it, and I think mainly the only reason they don't jump it is because they've got their young with them, and their young definitely can't jump it. But the adults can jump this if they wanted to. It's roughly 7.5 to 8 feet in height. We use a steel T-bar post. It's got pre-drilled holes, and we just use UV rated tie wraps to hold it fast to 2 galvanized wires. We just get the wire from our local hardware store in rolls. They give me a pretty good deal because I buy a few rolls from them at a time. I can put the posts in by myself. I can lift the fencing by myself and roll it on. I don't need to hire any additional labor, which saves me lots of money, hopefully. It's mostly my time. And if by chance you do get a deer that does plow a hole through the fence, you can fix it. You just take some tie wraps and tie wrap it back together. It just splits nicely. The whole fence doesn't come down. On the ends, we just use it's a gripple duckbill type anchor, on a stainless steel wire, and we just pound it in the ground, and then you pull it, and then the duckbill turns sideways and anchors it well. And then we just use these gripples here to secure the wire, and this allows us to retension the wires when they stretch, and they will stretch a little bit over time. And if we want to, we can also release the wire. If we have a problem, like a tree comes down, knocks down a few posts, and we want to release the wire to fix a post, then we can do so. And you can also reuse these. This one is I reused it, took it from somewhere else. That's about a 2-year-old one. So they last, they don't corrode. Neat product, nice little set of tensioners. A little bit expensive for the gripple, but they last and very useful. The rolls of this stuff, you can get it in different grades. There's different manufacturers. I think most of it comes out of China or South Korea. In Canada, it seems to be a lot more expensive than it is in the US, but we'll see. Sometimes you can get lucky and get some stuff that's not so expensive. Generally though, the cheaper it is, the less amount of time it's going to last. And they usually, quite often, they give you UV rating for them, 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. They'll give you some kind of life expectancy from the fence. I used to secure it at the bottom edge, so now all we do is we just tie wrap it at the bottom, and that's enough tension there that the deer can't crawl under it. So it seems. I've never seen a deer crawl under it. But what I found was smaller animals like a raccoon, possibly skunk, foxes, they can't get under it, they'll chew a hole through it. So I've just left it. If a raccoon wants to crawl under, they can get under it. It just saves me from having to patch holes all the time, because they seem to come up against it and they don't bother going around it, they just go through it, or they go under it. But that's all we do for deer fencing. I was using a 4x4 wooden post and a super spike, but what I found is in windy locations, the super spikes just aren't strong enough and they break, and I'm constantly replacing them. So I've gone with this 10-foot T-bar post, which seems to be a little bit cheaper as well, or roughly around the same cost. So hopefully, I'm hoping this setup will last longer and not create fencing repairs on a constant basis. A little bit about utility vehicles. This is a Viking UTV. Very handy rig. It's not the bottom of the line, it's not the top of the line, it's just the regular version with the power assist steering. The windshield was free for farmers, so that was a nice option. Holds 3 people. Got the winch with Yamaha dollars, I think they call it, so that didn't cost me anything extra. Holds 600 pounds in the back. Tilt box. Engine's underneath, easy to get to. We put the rear cover here to just keep down the noise a little bit and the dust. The top piece was already there. It's probably our #1 vehicle that's used on the farm. I know my wife, she uses it a lot. We have a trailer that we can hook onto the back of it, that we can haul stuff around with it. So it's been a very useful vehicle. And if we just want to come back to an orchard real quick, see what's going on, and we're just doing some work like this fencing, I can just load my tools and just come here and do my work. I don't have to bring a tractor to do so. So if you have any amount of orchards or orchard land that you are working on, these are a great little rig. John Deere, they make them, or they have someone make them for them. Kubota's got a pretty nice looking rig. What I found is that they were double the cost of these ones. And I don't remember what I think I bought this one a few years ago. It was around 13,000 Canadian. So I could buy 2 of these for the same price as one John Deere. So it didn't make much sense to me to, buy an expensive one And these guys seem to last. You know, I haven't had any problems with it. Just change the oil and the fluids in the front and rear ends and just drive it. Works just fine. So definitely very useful. It's a little bit wider than its typical 2-seater, so not that great for trail riding, but great for working on the farm. That's it for this one.